we had, a lot of men going, oh, this is different. Oh, you're going to, what do you mean, who do I want to be? Who has asked me that? A simple answer we got, probably more than we ever expected to get. I want to be the sort of person, I want to be the sort of dad who my kids connect with whatever age they are. That is the most, one of the most powerful stories that we've had. And on a Mind site, 80% of the change coaching that we are doing with them is around relationships.
Trademark's 120 Grit podcast, the podcast for the working class.
G'day legends, just letting you know that the TX support line is now up and running. If you're a tradie, a truckie or a blue collar worker, don't let it get any harder. Text or call, this is a conversation starter on 04 888 469 88. If you have a family member, friend or a loved one who is a blue collar worker that may be doing it tough and you're not sure where to turn, we're here for you too. Text or call 04 888 469 88. Alrighty, welcome back to Trademark's 120 Grit, the podcast for the working class.
Absolutely.
We have a very divine smelling studio today. Thank you, Ed Ross. It might be the tea. Today we are lucky enough to have a special guest in the studio. They usually are very special, but today
They're always special.
Today is an exceptionally special guest. We are lucky enough to have Bella Reynolds. Now, Bella, you may recognise her from the streets of Brisbane on her treadly, the mad cyclist with a very crude potty mouth, so don't you dare cut her off or you'll hear about it. That might be something to do with the fact that she's from Darwin. I don't know if people from Darwin have generally rude mouths, but you may also know Bella as a fully accredited life coach, trouncing around New Ackland Coal alongside her co-coach Tobes, who
T-Bone shout out.
We might hear a bit more about. So, Bella, welcome to the studio.
Thank you, lads.
Welcome.
It's an honour to be here.
Yeah.
Well, it's a bloody honour to have you. We were lucky enough to record a podcast with you just a couple of weeks ago for Unleash the Beast, which is an initiative from Toowoomba Regional.
Yeah.
And, had a bit of a podcast with Matt Gregg from Lifeline up there, which was really bloody awesome. But there was a lot of good vibes and a lot of good bouncing off each other. So we thought we'd better get you in here and see what else we can make of it.
Yeah, so we were chatting before about the New Ackland coal mine, which I'd say majority of people have heard of because it's been in the news quite a bit. But just to give us a bit of a background on what the New Ackland coal mine is and sort of why it has been in the news so much recently.
Yeah, it's a little bit sad in my opinion. So we, as of last year, there was a workforce of about 300. I think it's about 14 years ago they've started a whole process of going to stage 3. It's been actually named lots of different things. There's a whole political piece to it as well. But the truth is that right now we have gone from 300 workforce down to 150 last year. And as of last week, another 25 beautiful humans out there received their notices and we'll go down to 125 by the 1st of October. So we've got a very gradual now process of rolling back that workforce down. Look, I'm not familiar with what the numbers will be next year, but we've got massive drops in tonnages, say that.
Yeah.
And which means that the workforce has got to go. Without stage 3, the mine won't go ahead.
Where is the mine again? It's near Oakey or something, isn't it?
So we're about 25k north of Oakey.
Okay.
So it's been operational, I think it's around 17 years.
Yep.
And it's got a really strong workforce from the local community. There are some people drive in for their rosters and live a little bit out, but the vast majority live locally, so Highfields, Toowoomba, Oakey, Dalby and surrounds. And so it's just a top place for people to work. They love working there. So
I suppose it's probably a bit of a different culture compared to most of the other bigger mines in Australia where it's a lot of fly in, fly out. So there is quite a strong community base there at the New Ackland coal mine. So I suppose it's made it even harder with all the layoffs recently.
Yeah, it was. Last year was a really tough year. And we've got a strong farming community that work there as well. So and I know your background, Ed, you know, that it's been fabulous, I think, for a lot of them to have that ability to earn a good wicket. It's a good income at the same time still running their farm. So when you had, and certainly this time last year, with everything that's gone on, we've forgotten that horrible drought.
Yeah.
And then, so it was interesting watching everyone through COVID, because these guys have lived with a quite high level of uncertainty, at least the last 6 years solidly. Will we, won't we, will we, won't we, will we, won't we? So when COVID hit, I did actually notice, in my opinion, there was just that level of resilience underlying. Everyone was like, oh, yeah, righto, yeah, we've got COVID. But there's just another role coming rather than a massive calamity, which we saw with the toilet paper. You know, like there was just a little unrolling. But, so it's been a really challenging, certainly the last 12 months, literally the last 6 months, been really challenging. Having said that, there's been, you know, a beautiful investment made by that company in health and wellness for their staff for, you know, it's actually 7 years. Yeah. Yeah. April, it's just gone 7 years. So I think that's also provided a nice support mechanism for people either to change or to manage change. So, yeah.
How old is that mine?
I think it's around the 17, 18 years it's been going.
Oh, righto.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, okay, righto. So I was just...
It's reasonably new, really.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not like one of those mines that have propped up a community for, you know, for decades and decades.
No, not decades,
kind of thing.
but you're sort of coming up into 2 decades.
Yeah.
And the hope would be that we could get stage 3, which would allow that next, I think it's something like 12 or 14 years of coal to run through. So a whole raft of them would complete their working life out there. Yep. But, you know, it is at the end of the day what we're about, you know, Tobes and I particularly in the program, is helping people. What can you control? What can't, you know, we can't control what's going on with that.
Well, let's talk about your role. So what you and Toby do there.
Yeah. So the program, the health and wellness program, was created, and it always had a lot of ownership because there was always a committee right from day one. And so when I came in under a company called LiveWell, our role was to help create and deliver monthly topics in regards to health and wellness that were pertinent to the site. So there were surveys, there was a lot of experts we brought out. Over the time, that has morphed quite a lot. And so what I've observed and been part of is that we went from very heavily dependent in the program to experts, and then there's almost that process where you can give people as much education as they need, but at some point they've actually got to take action if it's what they are ready to change.
It's nothing without the action piece.
No,
yeah.
And there's a whole process about stages of change. So, you know, some people may never be ready to change, and it's really important to know that, because everyone, like we three right now, if we sat down and did a little bit of just some questioning about it, we will all have different stages of change at different parts of our life at any one point. So when you go and broadcast information to a population, and at that point over 300 people, you're not going to get everyone ready to change at the one time. But when someone, so you basically in that stages of change process, when they're ready, you've really got to have that support mechanism, because I was just saying to you before, it's one thing to inspire people to change, but if you're not ready to support them, it's a bit like you take them to the edge and then you literally go, oh, there you go, okay, off you go.
I suppose that's why the charity for us has been so big, and it's been so important for us to get that up and off the ground, because for so long Dan and I felt like we were shortchanging our community and what we could offer them, because it was like, what is next? And it's hard because there's nothing else out there that we sort of believed in, I suppose. I'd say there was nothing else that we were like, this is an easy push through to go and access. Like, this is the next step for you now. We never had that. So it was like so important for us to get TX up and going, so we can, and we do have that now. So it's, here's the fun side of it, the change. This is cool. We're starting conversations. Oh, but now I actually do want to see someone. Where do I go? Well, it's now you can. know
And
what I mean?
you're spot on, because I think that's the process too, is if you look at a flow chart, if you've inspired them to listen to you and then they've got their cogs turning and go, I really like the way these guys do. I look at you and go, well, if you've cleaned your stuff up or if you're willing to be vulnerable, I want to play with you. And if you don't have that next level of support, I think it's almost a little bit naughty.
Well,
you know, because it's like you're taking them to the edge, and it's like, well, okay, righto, here's this number, and but they haven't engaged with Lifeline. They've engaged with you guys.
Yeah, I know, and it is. The word naughty. Yeah, it's sort of the hard part is that it's so hard to inspire change in the first place. But then when you do have that coming, it's just like there's got to be a follow on. And I suppose, and the other side of that too was that the way TX was born out of someone reaching out to someone that they thought, or an organisation that they thought was there for them and wasn't, was sort of the other big thing where we throw our hands in the air, we're like, well, this is all bullshit. You know, it's a hard one, because especially when you do finally show the vulnerability and the power to reach out and make change, and no one's there to catch you, well, then you just so much easier just bury yourself back in that hole again and stay there because no one was there when you tried.
Well, you actually go further into the hole.
Yeah.
Is what I sort of observe. It's almost like, I tried and it didn't work.
You weren't there.
So, I knew it wouldn't work anyway. So, you know.
The other problem is that there's nothing in that middle ground, you know what I mean? It's always like, well, you know, if you're feeling depressed or if you're really struggling, call this number or whatever. But it's like, what about that whole ocean, you know, in between, you know, getting to that point and, you know, beforehand, that muesli bar.
I'm sorry, I'm just going to get it out of the wrapper now, because I know I'm going to be starving here in a minute. Sam's protein bars.
Filling that middle ground is so crucial, right? Because that's a vast, big blue ocean that requires a hell of a lot of work. And I gather that's sort of where you're playing, right?
Yeah, pretty much. And it's because if you're in that ocean of feeling a little bit anxious, or the tag mental health to me is like, I prefer to say, I've experienced poor mental health, or I've got super mental health. And we do a lot of our conversations about the poor mental health side. It's, you know, we are humans. And as humans, we are going to surf the troughs and the peaks. We're just going to do that. And so, and the way that our brain is wired, if we are going to, and you guys I know talk about growth mindset, if we're going to challenge ourselves, prepare yourself. Because change 100%. Is not easy. You've got that going on. And so
there's always a trade-off.
Always. But that's the human experience. And so that big ocean you're talking about is, because we're not psychologists or anything like that. And Tobes and I actually have clients that we work with who work with a psychologist and us. So there's various fields there. But if you're not feeling a little bit funny sometimes, is in that anxiety, because you know it's the same physiological response, anxiety and excitement.
Yeah, right.
Did you know that?
No,
I have heard that. What was that on? There's some documentary on Netflix
cool.
or something. Yeah, I have heard that before.
Cool.
Same physiological response.
So you think about it. If I could take you through a visualization process, I would ask you to consider, get you to shut your eyes and actually think about something that's coming in the future that you are excited about. And as you visualise it, you will have very similar physiological responses. You'll get a quickening of the heart, the heart rate, you'll get all of that going. You may even have cold sweat. You could have, breathing changes, all of that. But it's the same when you have anxiety, And I had an experience only the other night where, and I've shared this with the guys at the mine, I hadn't been on site for 2 weeks because I had a week off. And it was the Wednesday night I went to bed, and I'm very methodical about my times because it's, up at dawn and well before dawn. We're on site before dawn. And I found myself at 2:00. I woke up and I was like, oh my God, am I a little bit nervous about presenting today? What was? I was excited. It was the same thing. And they're going, get excited to come here? Well, Tobes and I love it because really, we are in an incredible position where this management team have said it's a form of pastoral care. It really is with regard to the workplace coaching. So Tobes is on site Monday to Friday. I'm there on a Thursday. We still maintain support on and off site. So I have people talking to me through the week, and we catch up with family members as well. So our core mechanism is as the people at site are willing to make change or handle the changes, that they have a support mechanism that they are familiar with. And people don't connect to ideas. They actually connect to you guys
People,
and the
yeah.
ideas that you have.
Well, you talked about mental health just before, and I heard I was on a webinar on last Friday, and Dr. Diane Harner was on the webinar as well, who's don't quote me, neuroscientist, but was talking about
Looks at brains.
Looks at brains. Yeah.
Awesome. Love it.
But yeah, it was talking about, I mean, we always talk about this, mental health thing being, on a spectrum and, it's obviously so multi-layered and all this kind of stuff. But she made a really interesting point that was about, you've got mental health, right? But you've also got mental illness, right?
Correct.
And they're both to do with the same thing, but they're on different spectrums.
Spot
They're
on.
on completely different spectrums. And that was a new thing for me to hear. And I was like, of course they are. Like, why didn't that ever drop before? And the two almost need to be treated a little bit differently. But because, I don't know. They are both equally as complicated, but they're very, very different ballparks.
Well, it's also that piece, and I'm not a neuroscientist. It's an area that I want to start playing in is more neuroscience. And it's really cool stuff because the whole neuroscience tag has actually gone ballistic. And we had a part of the habit change qualification I did recently, we had a webinar with a neuroscientist, and they've actually got a field of research now, believe it or not, about how the tagline of neuroscience has become so cool. And it's why, and they're looking into why is it so, and humans deeply love to know about their brain. So it's really cool stuff. The thing that is fabulous about what she was saying there is that the way I look at it is if we can have really cool conversations about poor mental health or good mental health and talk about it just like your broken arm or your fixed arm or bring it into that same space, I hope what we will do is start to reduce the level of poor mental health, which hopefully over time reduces the capacity to move into the disorders and all of that world. And as someone could listen to this podcast and please get onto you guys and say, no, Bella's so off target here, because it's a little bit like those disorders are at the top of the tree there, and when we do a lot of the conversations, it's always about, that person who almost suicided. That does not happen overnight. Does not have. How can we mitigate that at the lower level and normalise it? And the other thing that I thought was cool, because I was thinking about coming to this. So why is it that we have to talk about mental health when we really don't talk about our broken leg? But I think it's because we can't see your poor mental health.
Yeah.
So I think we have to share the stories because it's almost the stories are our seeing piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
But the thing is like we that analogy is thrown around all the time, that whole broken arm thing, all that sort of stuff. But we don't really talk about physical health any better than we talk about mental health, I don't think. Like, there's definitely things around physical health that are taboo. Like if someone's overweight, you don't go and, you don't tell them.
Hey,
like,
Tubbs.
And they're also not there really talking about it much. I mean, I suppose it is brought up, but there's definitely a lot of aspects of physical health, but even nutritional health. Like it's the same thing. You can see what you eat, but most people don't tell you what they actually do eat, or like
This is such a segue into bad habits. I was wondering how we're going to weave that in.
Do you know
there.
what I mean? Like most people don't. We know we've got to eat good stuff, and you can see what you eat, but most people don't tell you. I mean, I'll tell Ed if I sneak through the Macca's drive-through
Well,
about a sneaky double
I'll
cheesy.
see him walk across and put it in the bin. The wrapper, no, not the food. The food will be consumed.
But when it comes to overall health, right? Yeah, sure. Maybe mental health is the one that you can't really see, but it's part of this.
They're all intertwined.
why do you think I find this interesting because I'm probably going to flip this to you guys.
Yeah, flip it.
Is
Flip
it-
it on
is
its
it-
top.
Go back.
And my
Let's swap
beautiful
sides.
toes we'll do a full, what are we going to do, a cartwheel on this. So when someone comes to you and say they want to lose weight, one of the questions we will ask them is why?
It's fair call.
Yep.
And when you really dig, so why would you like to lose weight? Well, because I should. Oh, right, my doctor tells me I should. Oh, I've got these stats. Okay. Well, put that aside. So why else? What if you go and lose the weight tomorrow or over the next 6 months, what are you going to gain? Oh, I might get a couple of friends. I actually might get a relationship. I actually may leave the relationship I'm in. And this is where I think it's really interesting to me. A lot of the physical health issues we see, a lot of them when I chat with clients and do this coaching, stem back to the mental health.
Oh, yeah.
So why
We've
are they,
spoken about that at
it's
length.
huge.
We've
Well,
spoken about that
I
at
always
length.
talk about the whole diet thing because, it's obviously people, feel like they need to be on a diet, or people are
Shoulds.
always talking about being on a diet, but their reason for wanting to
Shoulds.
do it is because, they believe they should, but
Should.
But
often
diets, oh
if
my
you
God.
don't understand, if you don't dive right into the root cause or your why or,
Waste of energy.
all of that stuff, the diet doesn't have a chance.
It's
of
not-
And
working.
98% of them don't work.
But it's not diet. But the problem is that's all the marketing and that coming back to exactly what we were talking about with the alcohol before. People believe that for them to lose weight, that they do need to make drastic changes.
huge.
They need to stop everything that they're doing and do something completely new. And that was what I was fully of the thought until I actually went and invested in nutrition and saw a mate from school and started doing it. And I was like, wow, all it is just reduction of food, and the food that you do eat just needs to be a bit healthier. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a massive change. Unless you're drinking 30 cans of Coke a day, then that means you've actually got to make a bit of a change. But
But if you do, just drop one.
yeah, you know what I
Go
mean?
from 30 to 29.
Yeah.
Because guess what? You'll probably drop that one because you go, oh, shit, that's easy. I'll be able to do that. Whereas
Yeah.
if you say remove Coke from your life, it's like, nah, it's serving a purpose right now. So
But
you can go
don't
and
you
get
reckon if people can just dive into that sort of that why part and those sort of deeper sort of maybe issues or whatever root causes, maybe you don't actually have to lose all that weight. Maybe it's just an attitude, like a bit of a realignment of your belief system and your kind of your understanding of yourself. Like then you
it's
might
how you see yourself.
it's all your perception of yourself. Exactly right,
I
isn't
think,
it?
yeah, but that also comes back all to the goal setting and what you actually want to achieve, because it's so easy to be like, oh yeah, I'm just going to go on this diet, and then you don't really know why you're doing it, and you're a month into it and you're like, oh, this is actually pretty shit, I'm sick of doing this, and then you stop, and then the cycle changes again in 6 months' time because you're like, oh, I'm still fat, I want to, you know what I mean?
It'd be like waterproofing that wall, right? With no understanding of what the purpose was,
Yeah,
or it'd be like
doing it
digging a
anyway.
hole, you're digging a ditch.
That was my first job on a site, actually, digging that hole and put that post in it. I'll remember that. I'll go past that house one day.
But
I was like,
imagine-
that was my first
I
ever
hope it's
job.
still standing.
But imagine if you were just told to dig a hole, because you thought you should dig a hole, and you're just like digging and digging and digging.
Like Dale.
What's the point of this?
But
What's
that's
the
what
purpose?
people do when they diet.
Yeah.
When they go on the roller coaster of diet. We've been sold a pup. It is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and it just does not work. It does not work. And your comment before about, what you want to achieve, we step back one further. It's actually not about what you, in our opinion, it's not really what you want to achieve. It's who do you want to be?
That's
Who
interesting.
do you want to become? Who do you want to become again? Because when you actually identify who you want to be, then from there you
Is
work
that
out
as in
the
like
do's.
another person, or something that you just, how you want to be perceived, look, feel? Is that what it is? Is it you, or is it like, I want to be like someone
Physically,
else?
emotionally.
I am the sort of person who. So one of these perfect stories to explain at this point is when we share the habit-based program in January at the site. We had a lot of men going, oh, this is different. Oh, you're gonna what do you mean? Who do I want to be? Who has asked me that?
No one's ever asked me that.
Yeah. Well, and if they did, they had chalk and they had a cane and they're like, well, why do you even want to know? Are you serious? You really want to know
you
that?
care?
Yeah,
Like,
it's all of that stuff. But a simple answer we got, probably more than we ever expected to get. I want to be the sort of person, I want to be the sort of dad who my kids connect with whatever age they are. That is the most, one of the most powerful stories that we've had. And on a mind site, 80% of the change coaching that we are doing with them is around relationships. Does that surprise you?
No.
Isn't it cool?
Yes. Because
Yes.
it is.
It's
so
not about
big.
weight loss.
Yeah.
It's not about all that crap and what they're putting in their mouths. When they identify who they want to be in that relationship, if they even want to be in that relationship,
Yeah.
and then that all of a sudden, because the thing that's really cool is when you think the thought that comes up, when someone asks you that, who do you want to be, I promise you, if I said to both of you right now, who's the person you want to be? You have both come up with something has popped in your head.
Matthew McConaughey.
Well, if you were, this would be a different podcast.
Woody from Toy Story.
When's that movie coming out, by the way? There's a new one coming out.
The thing is, most people actually can think about it, but the next step is giving themselves to permission to be that person and to actually share that thought with another human.
But what do you say? How many people do you come across who just don't know what they want to be? Because I know for a long time I didn't know what I wanted to be.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I probably lacked a lot of self-confidence there for a long time.
Who'd ever asked you it before?
Yeah, exactly.
And if they'd asked you, did they direct the answer? How many parents direct our children to be the person, and they're not conscious of this, to be perfectly honest, and I think of my parenting, often we're not conscious that we're directing. We see our children as they come up and we go, oh my God, you're so good at this, this and this. You should be dunk. But when we have those be conversations when you're growing up, they're generally around the job you'll do,
not the person you are.
And you've got to go back a step. The job is only one part of your life. And how many of us have any workaholic habits?
Oh, yeah,
Hands
for
up.
sure. And it's very dangerous to let your job become your identity. But so many
You're
people...
only married to it, Derek.
So many people... You do not want to be married to your job because you can only really have room for one marriage in life.
Well, in our culture. Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah, no,
So-
but that sort of goes back to something that I'm kind of becoming a bit passionate about is that whole encouraging young people to sort of follow where their kind of natural tendencies kind of lie. For instance, some people are more caring and more nurturing, more, empathetic, might make good healthcare professionals, right? But the job that looks good
Pays the good coin.
is the lawyer. But what there's no understanding is that if you're naturally suited to your job, your level of job satisfaction and your ability to kind of, achieve, good things in that job is so much greater. And that is far more valuable than a big paycheck.
And you've got to put a price on it though.
You do.
And unfortunately, we're conditioned in our society that the price is put on what gets put in your bank account. And
Yeah,
that's and it's funny because I think that's part of the process as we age. So well done, level of maturity, that you're really identifying this at this stage because I must admit in the coaching world, core public that we deal with, 40s, 50s, 60s.
Missed the boat.
Well, they have those reckonings, have those epiphanies. They get through that stage of life where, they've probably reared the children, job has got into a bit of a cruisy, their financial requirements maybe a little bit less and it's like, oh my God, so now here's this gap. It's like, wow, what do I want to be? Be.
But that's the other misconception of, and we've spoken about it before, of, why people are working in the first place and what they think their reason for doing it is. And majority of the time it's money.
Shoulds.
Yeah, but it's like I'm doing this for the money because we need it, because we've got this and we're doing that. But it's like what is actually important? Like what do you actually need to survive? And then what do you think you're going to need to live an easy sort of lifestyle?
Yeah.
I think people heavily underestimate what that price is. Heavily underestimated.
The other beautiful piece to this too is that you may be working in a role, in a job, in a career that you actually like a lot. You may not love it, but to be brutally honest, not all of us love every single day. I do, but not everyone. But so you might like it, but if you don't have other parts of your life that feed your being, like your hobbies, like your social life, if you're caught up in a social life that is heavily dependent on alcohol and substances to suppress exactly what you're really feeling, and you don't have a creative outlet, that is another whole piece.
What about when people's social lives are sort of almost codependent with their profession or what they do for a living?
You've got to make the money to do that every weekend.
Yeah, and it's like I'm doing a job that I hate, but I like the idea of it. And then the people who I hang out with outside of it are also tied to that. And
you're externally driven and you're going to come asunder at some point. You really are. You're going to come asunder. Can I share this concept?
Bella, it's your microphone, mate. You share as much as you want.
Hang on, I'm going to turn us down.
So I'm going to share about a concept that you will have heard of but probably don't fully appreciate. And I know a lot of your listeners won't. Some of my guys at the mine.
We only have two, Sue Ross and
Mum and my grandmother.
Sue
No,
Ross
you've
and-
got 4 now because you've got Tobes and I.
Oh, yeah.
So when I say to the concept of willpower, what does that say to you? When I say use your willpower, oh, come on, Ed, just use your willpower.
Like internal drive, I suppose.
Yeah. Are you holding back? Well, what's the energy?
your ability to follow through with what you genuinely want to do.
So that's really interesting. Both of you think about as energy out to do that, whereas a lot of people I work with, it's about restraint. I'm just going to hold back. I'm going to hold back. I'm going to hold back from the chocolate cookie.
I'm not going to smoke because
I'm like,
yeah.
So a lot of people use willpower to change. You know what? It's Monday morning. I said I'm going to stay off the sauce.
Yeah.
I don't drink after work now. And then they find themselves Monday afternoon, basically at 4:00, and they are tonguing for that beer.
Yeah.
They're like, oh my God, or their wine, and they just can't wait to have it. The thing that I want to share, and I just think this would be such a beautiful jigsaw piece to why people, or a lot of people we work with are so tired. I promise it all floats back to what we're talking about with mental health, is that willpower is actually like a muscle, right? Now, we don't just use willpower to not have that cigarette or not have that donut or push, as you said, to go. We don't just use it for that. It is a universal resource. From the minute we wake up till the minute we go to sleep, we've used it all day long. Now, if you have used willpower all day to not say what you think, if you're working in an environment that is not linked to who you really are, if you're holding yourself back at work from giving the boss your mind, if you're in a parenting situation where you literally feel you can't say, or in a relationship, goodness knows, you're in a relationship with someone and you can't be your true self, can you see how much willpower it requires? How do we replenish willpower? What's it?
Rest, leisure.
You are top of the class. You are. It is rest. So
Hang on, wait here. I'm going to go out and get a gold star. I think we've got a few upstairs.
So when we've shared this at the site, we actually get a dumbbell, like a really quite a heavy one, and we ask the guys, we say, just go and do, how many reps can you do? 15 reps of that. So they just do the 15. And about the 12, doesn't matter what weight they are or they actually feel that muscle fatiguing. Do you know what most of them actually do when I say, oh, can you just do another 5? What do you reckon most of them do?
I would actually assume that they'd want to crank them out.
Absolutely. And then I say, how about another 5? Oh, yeah.
Oh,
I'll push through.
Bella, I can do that for you. Yeah.
I don't think it's about me. I think it's about the people around them.
Around them, for sure.
Because they're like, I don't want to be seen to be this person that you might think I need to be. It's like this.
Do any of them ever turn around and say, well, no, I don't want to?
Yeah, I had the odd one and we
That's
love them
good.
because
That's
they get the
willpower.
and they get
Stick your dumbbell up your ass.
You can take that and jam it. And I'm like, boom, you're comfortable being yourself. Yeah. So I suppose what I'm talking about here is that when we use the willpower like that, it leads to a concept called ego depletion. We literally get
Ego
exhausted.
depletion. That is the first time I've ever heard
It's
that.
a really cool concept. So when we get depleted, when you get to the end of the day and you are absolutely exhausted.
You just got to get home, put your feet up on the couch.
But what do we do?
Well, I normally have a nice little vino.
Yep.
in the afternoon.
Okay. Now, if you can't stop the vino, there's an issue, Brie. If we are really that exhausted, most of us will go, oh, okay, I'm just going to have that. I'm going to have that, or I'll have that coffee, or I'll have that. I actually ignore how I feel, and I'm just going to push through. And I suppose the reason I love bringing that concept up is in regards to change and being your best self and becoming who you need to become. It's really important to start honouring those feelings. Like you're tired, you don't need that drink. You need to probably have a little nap, or you need to.
So that's probably the habit that we were talking about earlier. It's sort of, I suppose the question is, what is the healthy alternative or the better alternative to that? So like say it is, you bust your ass all day and then you come home and have 3 beers in the afternoon. So like what is an alternative to that to still get the same result, I suppose, for the individual, but it's a better outcome? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And my question to you, which should really annoy you, but this is a coach
Here's
to
one
you.
straight back at you.
There you go. So you tell me.
Well, I don't know.
What would make you feel replenished? If
Well,
you did,
something that we've, my wife and I go take the dog for a walk.
boom, that's it.
Yeah, I know, but it's sort of like, yeah.
But the one time you do it, so you're usually used to going home and having 3 tins or however many or whatever it is you do. And then the one time you do the walk, you're probably not going to feel, fully the same after that one time. But once you make it a habit and you kind of start to do that for a month or whatever, then it kind of becomes your new normal, right?
So the first question I would ask Ed, even before that, is does having that wine generally with your partner at the end of the day, does it serve you, be the person you want to be or not?
I know, it's just like a bit of a gap filler.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, see, okay.
I don't have it because I need to have it. Like I was off the grog for 7 weeks when I did this like bloody body workout nutrition challenge. And it's not like I don't know. I suppose it is just that habit. It's sort of like last night came home, was cooking dinner and Alana's away this week. So I was like, let's have a glass of wine while I'm making dinner.
Yeah,
Why
didn't
not?
have any pants on. It was great.
Yeah, my housemate didn't appreciate it, Big Marcos. No,
But
I had pants on.
It's okay to say that it's nice to have a glass of wine, and I like having a glass of wine, and it's not in excess, and I'm not.
Yeah.
I can go without it, and I can willingly choose to either do this or not. But I want to do this, and I'm okay with that.
And guess what the word you've said in that sentence that is so important?
Okay.
Choose.
Damn.
Damn, I want a gold star.
He'll get one.
don't you?
And he's on the way. But that's it. You've actually said, the opposite of a habit is choice. So what is a habit? When I ask you, gold star opportunity, Dan, what's it?
Yeah, I think it's probably something that you're doing without choice. Oh shit!
So if it's not choice, then what could it be?
It's God help me, Ed! Quick!
No, it just
Automatic.
Yeah. It just happens like a routine thing. It just
See, we're all about support here. I'll get you there.
I just completely buckled under pressure.
You turned white. You turned completely white. You were translucent there for about 3
You
seconds.
can see the pressure.
That's the LED lights.
But you're spot on. So the opposite of choice is actually habit. It is anything that is an automatic response. And the irony is where I actually don't care if either of you have a wine. It's none of my business. It really is none of my business. If you, though, said, I would like to be able to choose to have that wine at night, which Ed has actually got into a position to do because you did take that break away from it in that challenge that you've done, which is an awesome thing. So you've actually got a high level of awareness. When you have that wine now, you actually know you're choosing it.
Well,
Have I heard that?
Well, you definitely have a larger appreciation for it rather than just drinking it for
It's
the
just
sake
not
of
automatic.
drinking it. Even though it was a little 19 crimes on special there I got from BWS on Sunday afternoon, which is not the greatest drop, but it's getting me through the week. You know what I mean?
Red flag, getting me through the week.
No, you know what I mean.
Crikey.
No,
He's
it's
working with you.
but I think that's probably. Yeah, it comes back to the binge drink type stuff where people are just like getting absolutely shit faced for the sake of it. And like I've had a mate when I was at college and like he's like, I don't actually like drinking alcohol. I just drink heaps of it whenever. Like I won't drink just one. He was like, I will never just drink one drink. Like
One
after
serving
work.
of alcohol.
Yeah, he's like, I don't enjoy drinking it, but I do enjoy getting shit faced drunk with mates. You know what I mean? And I was like, that's interesting because I was like, you're literally not drinking it for the enjoyment of it. You're drinking it to get to a certain level of.
That's his reward.
Yeah, you know what I mean? I was like, oh, that's really like it's half sad, really, but it's
impressive he actually knew that because he's not on his own.
Oh, well, I'm sure
He's not on his own at all. If you really speak to a lot of people about their drinking habits,
I reckon 90% of
automaticity-
people that drink beer just do it because everyone else is doing
It's
it. Beer
conformity.
sucks ass. I hate beer.
I disagree with
Yeah,
you on that
you're
one.
on the top. You're in the 10%. You're in the 10%. I reckon there are heaps of people out
You
there.
drink it all the time and you don't like it.
No, I can't drink. I'm celiac anyway. But when I was young
Yeah.
and I didn't know I was celiac and I'd have a beer, I was like, this is the shittest thing I've ever consumed in my life. Everyone's like, oh, how good's this beer? It's like, mate, this is shit.
You should have tried a Bolter XPA.
Mate, Mick Fanning was still in nappies when I was.
What? How old?
I'm joking. I'm joking.
Oh God! So Bella, what does it look like when you're working with guys on a mine site? Like, because a few things that come to mind for me is it's probably a bit confronting for a lot of people who haven't worked with or who haven't had anyone who have given a shit about
Bloody life coach.
about everything outside of work. And so how does it actually look? How is it received? And sort of, what do you kind of hope to achieve out of it all?
That's a really good question. There we go.
It's not a gold star. It's not a gold star, though.
Come on. I think that's gold starable.
Do you know what? I'm going to put a gold star on my back either way.
Good. I love that. You're taking control.
You're going to choose
to do that. You're listening. The thing I love about your question is that straight up, you've actually asked me, it must be uncomfortable or a bit weird for them to have someone who cares. And you know what? That's been the biggest illumination for me, that we're working with people who are unfamiliar with people actually giving a shit. And Tobes talks to me about this all the time, and I find that really friggin' weird. And I suppose I've been very privileged is how I was brought up, or maybe I got no idea. But it is a lot of men who finally come and catch up with us, and it is definitely a co-coaching environment. Tobes is doing the heavy lifting out there Monday to Friday, and I feel like some days I'm a bit of a rock star and comes in on the Thursday and what have you. But obviously some people are more drawn to one of us than the other. We do co-coach with some people because that's probably what's happened. And the other process is they did know me particularly. They also knew Tobes before we actually had the formalised coaching opportunity, and I think that's been valuable too.
Level of trust.
It is all about trust. And look, we've still got a hell of a lot of them out there that are not coming up and having one-on-ones with us. But the funny thing is that we hear via their mates of some of the stuff they're doing. And so it's sort of normalised that it's okay to check in with someone about how they're feeling or what's going on in their life, and then how that could get addressed.
How often do people come and see you?
Every day. So Tobes and I have conversations every single day.
Yeah, but like one bloke would, like on average, would the one person come in once a week, once a fortnight?
So we have, the way it rolls is that we present in toolboxes every single week over a month. So it takes us 4 Thursdays in a row to get across each crew.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and in that, but Tobes and I did the numbers the other day. So roughly you've got 150 on site roughly, and we've got actively involved 60 weekly. That's huge.
Wow.
You do your
That's
numbers
so
on health
impressive.
and wellness programs, you get 15%, you're doing super well.
Wow.
We've always had high engagement with programs, and I do attribute a lot of that to the ownership through committee right at the very beginning, as well as different management. We've had different people in the check writing chair, but they've all maintained this is staying, this is staying, this is staying. So continuity, consistency, it's all about consistency at the end of the day. 60. So of those 60, I would say about 30 to 40 weekly would have a check-in. Not every single week a full-on half to 1 hour coaching session, but it's become a little bit of a habit.
So what is it, obviously not to go into details, but is it like the main thing that people are coming to you about? Is it relationships that we spoke about?
Relationships is the number one topic that we're both dealing with.
Yeah, interesting. So is it more people?
Their relationship with their self
Yeah.
and how that leads to either them improving their relationship with someone, a significant other at that point, or finding a significant other.
So is it the people that have got a partner, like a husband or a wife or whatever, are they coming in and having conversations to you that they're not having with them because they don't know how to have them with them? Is it something like that?
It's not as cookie cutter as that. Every single person we're dealing with is dealing with different elements of it. If that probably is evading your question.
No, but everyone's got different situations.
It depends how they are react. So one of the classics is one of the guys who recognised about 3 months in that he had automatic response. His habit was literally as he was getting himself ready in the machine to wind up for the day and get in the car and go home, he was winding himself up for a blue. And that was really fascinating because he sat in one of the sessions and he went, we share the habit loop with them, the cue, the routine and the reward. And he saw himself in the loop and went, oh my God, how do I stop myself getting up to here? Because it was like the emotional loop. And so from there, that conversation led to that impact that was having on his relationship. And it was actually splinter almost.
Yeah.
It was pretty solid. It wasn't going in the right direction, that's for sure. And so Toad particularly, and then both of us have been working with him about how he actually changes that habit loop.
Yeah. So what is that? What does that look like?
So for him, and that's what I mean, and none of this substitutes for mental health support. This is his story. For him, the biggest shift occurred when he and Tobes started to think, instead of him considering all of the negatives about, okay, what he divulged was he was starting to he was winding up because he was thinking about all of the things that was not getting done when he was at work. I'm on that machine working my ass off, and you guys haven't done this or this or this.
At
and
home? Yeah.
Now, this had been building through a whole raft of other things that had occurred in that relationship over a long time. So this was sort of like that straw, right? So, and this is going to sound flippant, but I promise you this is what he has done to begin his micro habit. First thing he did was he would still have that building up of emotion. Okay, I'm winding up, I'm coming home. And instead of thinking of all the negative, he literally had to rewire over a number of weeks. I'm going to think of all the things I love about my family, that if it is over, what I will miss.
Yep.
And you are dead right, Dan. It took time to practice that, and there was a bit of texting and reminding and, do that. But this is now a human that is now sharing in crew conversations about the changes he's made. That flip in thought, which can sound flippant. Does it sound flippant to you that you could literally?
No, it doesn't. I think
it sounds basic, to be honest.
And it's that whole difference between simple and easy. It's really simple what he had to do. Does that mean it's easy? No. This guy had also been dealing with anger management issues his whole life. So that was just one little habit that was surrounded that piece.
Yeah.
His level of emotional management skills have gone from, I reckon, 0.1 to, it's really interesting, the conversations we're having with him now, probably about the 80%. I can't tell you the shifts he's had, but the first thing is he just had to actually recognise himself in that loop and then be honest enough to own it and then have a support mechanism there to assist.
So that's what I was going to touch on, because that sounds like the biggest and most powerful thing to me, is that the fact that he was delivered this, concept or this idea of this loop, and he's identified where he gets to on that.
Yeah.
And it's like, just by being there, you guys being there and kind of at least just, portraying it in such a way that allows that guy to be like, oh yeah, that's where I get to. How do I stop from getting there?
Yeah.
Once you can identify that thing and then give you a platform to even question it, how can I change this? That's the hard bit that you've smacked through there. So
it's
that's
that
really cool.
support at that point of change. And that's why I just will forever be grateful for that this management team, and we've done this with programs across the sites as well, that they have maintained the consistency of this program, because that individual, okay, he's just one of 150, right? But these guys are operating heavy machinery, no different to, in the construction industry. Think of some of the tools these guys are operating with. Imagine if he wound himself up to a point, and we've certainly had experiences of this, that he actually forgot what his job was. And he's operating heavy equipment, and he happens to go through that stop sign and whatever comes of that. Same as the nail gun incident and the guy that's literally, his head is not at work and it takes that piece. So it's really hard to measure the efficacy of these programs, but I think we're starting to get now with how we can provide the information to inspire and then the support to change, how we can start to really see a real long-term shift.
Are you aware of these of programs like this in other mines?
So interesting. Under the Queensland Mining Act, there is a statutory imperative to educate.
That sounds important.
It does, doesn't it? I use that language because I love the fact that there's actually a line item on a P&L for this.
Lovely.
Oh, really?
Yes,
okay.
in the mining industry.
right.
I haven't come across it in other industries, but you can call it professional development and create a line item. Yep.
That was interesting as well. That same webinar that I was talking about with Diane Harner was it was about mental health for entrepreneurs, and going and raising money, right, for an idea, a seed round investment for a business that you want to start. It's like, put a line item in your in your spreadsheet for mental sort of mental health or mental health care for founders. Because if you go to someone who's going to potentially invest in your business and they can see that you've actually thought about the fact that this is going to be stressful, and I've got a little section in there to make sure that we can invest in ourselves during this process. They're going to look at that and just be like, oh, okay, righto,
we're fair income.
Yeah, which is a really good thing to consider. And it's not, it's amazing that now is looked at as something that's so responsible, whereas, in the past
Foresight.
it's been like something like shameful,
Well, it was like go to work, do your job, and piss off, basically, and clean your act up at home. But here's the thing. You tell me how many people really leave work, go home and forget about work. In all honesty, our lines are so blurred. Our society today is at a pace that is frightening. And so it's not the same world. So isn't it? It's almost this irony. The check writers my age and stage. So, I'm 53, that 53 to 65, that bracket, they're the predominant check writers. But we grew up in an era where you didn't look after your employees' health, least of all their mental health. So here's the thing I find a bit sad is that they'll have a line item for EAP services, Employer Assistance Program. Well, what the hell is that really useful for except for the crisis? We don't want to get the crisis. Okay, you have the crisis, but what are you doing pre-crisis? What's your preventative
But I think and we see that all the time. It's it's just an easy throwaway and be like, we've ticked the box, it's done. Just, we've covered our ass in case anything happens here.
Mitigation.
Yeah, that's what it is. And I mean, obviously, even, 50, 100 years from now, who knows what business is going to look like then. But I mean, I highly doubt it's going to be across the board anyway that everyone's doing investing in staff's mental health. You're always going to have asshole bosses and shit business cultures. Until the whole world explodes. Like, it's never going to change across the board.
I think you guys are leading I think your generation, and the Googles and those entities that have got the younger wave of check writers are just going, this is not negotiable.
Yeah, and I think that...
But then they look at Google and go, well, I can't do Google, which means I can't do anything. And I would go, no, you can do lots with minimal expenditure.
Yeah, and I think that it's going to be interesting to see how we really try and impact the trade culture in because it's such a hard male-dominated, you're up, like you were saying, you're up before daylight and you're normally working until, pretty late in the afternoon, and it's hot, hard work, 6 days a week most of the time, or if you're a miner, it could be, 7 or 8 days straight. It's how we start to really encourage change within organisations, just not individuals, and getting the whole team culture to embrace it and make that change. And hopefully it just sort of starts to spread out through.
Where do you reckon it starts?
Well, we're trying to obviously do that here.
Starts at the top.
We're trying to do that
Starts at the top. Vulnerability as leaders is key. But do you reckon taking this sort of stuff to mine sites is it kind of are there employees there that feel like this is being forced on them, or are they embracing it?
We've got to be really careful.
Because this is the fine line that you got to walk, where it's one thing where we've really found that we've had success with Trademutt is that organisations that, wear our shirts, it's often started from the bottom. It's been someone who's just an individual who's bought a shirt and worn it to work, and then everyone started talking about it. Then the manager's like, oh, what's that? And then they're like, oh, this is really cool. And it's sort of a ground up approach rather than all the managers saying, you have to wear this shirt and talk about your mental health. You know what I mean? Which is a really interesting approach, something where we lucked out a bit. But I don't know. How do you go about just being brought onto a site like that? And
we've had to be really careful. And Tobes and I are really mindful of that. We are there for those who would like to use us. If people don't want to use us, that's got nothing to do with us. It's whatever they're choosing not to is none of our business. And there's also a very confidentiality is a really big thing too, because I can tell you now, if Tobes and I weren't the sort of people that valued it at the level we have to, it would have fallen over ages ago. So there's a trust mechanism with it. But I'm also a believer that the people that really need it and want it will come. And then we've had people trickle through even in the last month who have sat on the bench and watched Because as you said, you are in the workplace, so there's that bit of thing going, oh, well, if I talk to Bella about this, how come my supervisor mightn't know about this? And if he finds out that, well, I don't get any overtime or whatever. So you're right. The other thing is the shirts. So when we started wearing your shirts, that was a really like cool process to watch too, because there was the like, oh my God, what are you, what are you doing? No, that's not the same. And yet that was the intent was we had to be seen to be separate. But then those conversations turned into, it's funny how what looks almost so ugly becomes just too beautiful. And it's like, oh, well, I want one of them too. So I think.
It's almost like you want to get to the point where these sorts of programs, almost the significant majority on site start to come, to interact with you, not to exclude everyone else, but almost like this pack mentality of like, well, if all these guys are going to, like, what are they doing? What are they talking about? Maybe I should go and try this. You know what I mean? It's like if we can get the significant majority to be interacting and sort of investing in this stuff, well, then, you're going to lead by example for everyone else.
With us, I think we're really fortunate is that we are able to deliver the content to their toolbox talks. So they don't get to choose whether they hear it or not. They can choose whether to listen or not, they get to hear it. And then the next step is if they want to go to that next level and have the regular coaching, what have you, then they make that choice and do that. But the thing that I think is really powerful is by offering it up front without the opt-in. There are definitely, of those roughly 50 to 60 that are regularly dealing with Tobes and I, if they'd been asked to opt in, I'd love to know how many of them would have opted in at the beginning because they didn't even know, how you don't know what you need to know until it's presented sometimes. So I think that has been, I was chatting with Darren about this. It's just been so powerful to be able to offer it to everyone and then they can opt in for that next level themselves rather than us presuming that it would be for everyone or not.
Have you got stories of fellas or, anyone on the site who have come and, seen you, either you or Tobes, and then sort of really been like, oh, shit, this is great. Like, can't wait to come back, you know what I mean? And then just like, this is really good.
This isn't what I expected.
You know what I mean? Like where they sort of, their attitude flips that much. It's like, never done this before. Suddenly, why haven't I been doing this all my life? That was his phone.
That's your phone. You've just lost your gold star.
It's going to be
mine. It's your phone.
Don't worry about it.
It doesn't matter.
It's good. He's over there.
Keep going.
Chilling over there with Samuel L. Jackson. But basically that sort of idea of, we talk a lot about help-seeking behaviour and reaching out to someone like yourself and having this conversation, maybe a bit confronting, but once you've done it the first time, suddenly it's not that hard anymore.
I think.
And you've only got things to gain. And
I do believe the fact that we've got 50 to 60, that's probably been the majority
Epic.
of experiences. It's like, oh my God, you know what? And we did a session the other day with one of the guys on site. He brought his 2 kids and his wife off-site to Tobes and I on a Friday night, and we just explained what we do. And Tobes shared his story, and I shared some habit stuff, and that was seriously cool.
Wow.
Because it's one thing for the individual to go home and go, oh, I'm ready to do this and I'm doing this. Talk about the additional support mechanism. If they go home and that support mechanism isn't on the same page, you can see how that can cause a bit of resistance or a delay. So for him, it was like, I've done this level of change now. For me to go from this level to that level, the top level, I need everyone in my family on board. And that was really cool. So no, we haven't sat down and done the numbers. The opposite of that is probably they come and do a session with us and go, oh my God, I'm out of here.
But
It's nuts.
But do you reckon that's?
There's plenty of them thinking that.
Do you reckon that's because they think you're nuts, or because they may be shocked or a bit sort of
I call it digesting.
It probably sounds like too much work, too much change.
Or maybe
do too much.
A bit confronting as well to think about some of those things.
We find that the people that come and catch up with us are at the stage of change.
Yeah.
Really, it's not a lot of tire kickers, because they can do that from
Walk
afar.
in, arms crossed. Fuck's going on here? What are you about? What's your deal, Bella?
Is this free?
So one of the funnier ones is someone goes, oh, my mate told me I should come in here. Like, okay, right,
yeah,
this
of
is
course
going to
you did.
go well.
Yeah.
But generally, once again, that's a front.
That's a good icebreaker.
Yeah, well,
That's
it is.
We get a lot of people through the text line. It's like I'm reaching out because of a mate, which is fine. That's
Yeah.
That's what we
sweet.
say. We make a point of saying that our service is, there for people who might know someone who's struggling, and because it's a good way to get people in, and also the support networks need as much help as anyone. So.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, it's been it's pretty interesting to think that a whole mine site has got you guys there for that training and that access. It's like it's pretty impressive.
And the topics probably that have been so well received in the last, so we've just completed 8 or just Thursday be our finish of the 8th module, but those emotional management. So when we were doing that podcast together and you guys straight away started talking in about emotional intelligence, emotional management stuff, I was like, oh, thank goodness, because that's the stuff. People don't get taught this stuff at school. So how else are they going to know it unless it's literally by learning by
that's
mistakes?
Just like it's a head scratcher.
What does it mean to you, emotional intelligence? Like,
I'm not a big one on intelligence when I talk about emotional management skills.
Yeah. What does it mean to you?
So for me is when, and I'm personally the same, is that when so number one is actually listening to my body to feel what I'm feeling. That's probably the core foundational one, is actually allowing myself the space to feel whatever that is. So that's a really big one. And then once I've recognised that feeling, then you've got to put a name on it, yeah? So who's ever given us the names other than the really obvious ones? So, and then when I've got the name with it, it's like, well, what am I now going to do about this? And then with those names and knowing what you do about it, who can I share this with? Because I can't think of one successful, not necessarily financially successful, but one successful person that's done it on their own. You get people through here all the time that have done super cool stuff.
Yeah.
And they don't do it on their own. They've got a team of support behind them. So it's recognising the emotion to begin with, putting a label, I hate the word label, putting a name on it, being able to name it. And then, so that's been the big thing when you watch these guys literally, because Tobes and I both get to see their faces as they're going, oh, you're talking about that. I feel that all the time. You're normal.
That's massive, isn't it?
Guess what, Steve?
Welcome to humanity.
Because that's sort of what I've sort of got a pretty firm belief that, blokes and a lot of people in general for a long time haven't had the vocabulary to articulate what it is they're feeling. And that step alone is kind of the biggest piece, instead of just having the shits or whatever it is, that very surface level kind of emotional.
And even if your name is I've got the shits, awesome, you got the shits. Well, why have you got the shits?
Yeah, when you say you got the shits, like what do you mean?
Tell me about the shits.
Yeah, like what is it? And that's the thing, I think.
Well, I'm actually feeling scared. Oh, you've got the shits because you're fearful.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well,
what
was the
scare
thought?
shits?
What was the thought that preceded it? Because remember, it's thought, feeling, action. Like there's always a thought that's preceded it.
Yeah.
No,
Very, very cool stuff.
Yeah, it's great.
Well, we whipped through an hour.
We sure did. No, it was great, Bella. I really appreciate you coming in. The cameras weren't too bad. That's fine. You and Tobes will be able to watch it back. It'll be great.
Are you doing anything outside of New Ackland?
So we...
in terms of people sort of maybe being able to get in contact.
Yeah,
or learn a little bit more.
So Tobes and I, unfortunately, we also will be winding back some of our services at the 1st of October, so they lose another 25 staff. So obviously everyone pays a bit for that. So Tobes will be winding back. We're still waiting to see the numbers, and I will be as well. So we've been approached by some other people. I also do, I've got a group program in the Habit Change. That's on my website. Don't know if you can do plugs on that.
Go plug it.
Plug.
So that's bellareynolds.com.au. So I've got that starting 7th of September. Tobes is also going to be doing processes like that. Because he's going from 5 days right now, he's going to have a bit of a transition to what his other offerings are. And we're open really to chat to anyone that would like to use any of this content to basically help your workforce be healthier, happier and safer.
Oh, love it. No, thanks so much.
It's definitely
Bella.
worth noting that you've rocked in here with a bloody well-worn
high
high
vis
vis faff.
Yeah, look at the Look at this.
How many have come in a scarf?
We'll get a photo with it.
It looks great. I reckon when they're worn like that,
It is very worn. I think we need new ones.
They're the best, yeah. I might have a spare freshie upstairs for you. We'll see after the show.
Yeah, wink, wink.
Wink. No. But no, thanks, Bella. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks so much, Bella. Been great.
Talk soon.
Do it again sometime.
Cheers. Thanks, guys.